What's going on, you guys, and welcome back to A Different Perspective. Now, before we get into this video, let me go ahead and say thank you to everybody that's been supporting and subscribing to the channel. We just hit 60,000 subscribers today. Thank you all so much. We're on a roll to 100K. This will be my second channel on YouTube to reach 100K. Hell, the first one, we're about to hit 1 million anytime, any day now, next month. But y'all, as y'all can see by the title of this video is going to be about two women that were very, very close to me, very dear to my heart, my mother and my aunt. Yes, this story is about my mother and my aunt. They passed away single, unmarried, and alone. All right. Now, I think there's a real lesson to be learned from this story, and you're going to hear it throughout the entire story, but it's really going to be summed up towards the end. But I promise you, if you try to fast forward to the end to hear it, you're going to be so confused. You're going to be so confused. So stay tuned, buckle up. This is a story time. So my mom and my aunt, right? I grew up hearing them say what we hear the modern women of the day say. Man, if the man can't give me no money, if he ain't got no money, he ain't got nothing that he can really offer me. That was the narrative that I heard from the both of them so much growing up. My mom particularly, I heard it from my mom the most. I lived with her, lived under the same roof as her for 28 years. I heard it from her the most. So much so that it affected me so negatively because here I was, this young man, this young boy, not having any money and thinking to myself, man, if I can't at least land a woman like my mother or on my mother's level, then what hope is there for me? So I kind of like just sat back and just really didn't do a whole lot of pursuing of women throughout most of my 20s, right? Until I was in my later 20s. Because I was always hearing that narrative. Like I said, I was hearing this come from my mother more than I was hearing it come from my aunt. And the reason being is because for a substantial amount of time, my aunt had been in a committed relationship. She was in a relationship with this Hispanic guy. They never got officially married, but they kind of considered themselves husband and wife because they had been together for close to 20 years. I mean, since I was maybe 3 years old to I was like in my early 20s, they had been together, right? He had ended up getting a new job opportunity. It was with the same company that he was working for so long, but they had moved from Georgia to Alabama. And she would go back and forth to get money from him to continue to support his family that he has back home in Georgia. His woman, their 2 kids. A turn of events happened, right? He ended up finding a woman, a young lady out in Alabama and starting a whole new family with her. Kind of just like pushed his family back home in Georgia to the side. So my aunt ended up having to get a job. She ended up having to get a job because she couldn't support these kids on her own. So my aunt went out there into the workforce and she was trying to find whatever job that she could. So she would work at this place for a couple of years and she would work at that place for a couple of years, but nothing would ever stick long term. I think one job she had for 2 years, the other one she had for maybe about 5 years. And then after that, she didn't too much work. She didn't work very much. But so luckily she had one of my other aunts moved in with her back in 2000 when Y2K came. That aunt was so afraid that Y2K, the computers, was going to take over. She didn't know nothing about computers. She still doesn't to this day. She was so afraid that the computers were going to take over. Some of y'all are too young to know this story. That she was like, hey, I'm about to pack up my stuff and I'm moving in with you. Hell, your man is gone. You got them kids there by yourself. Hell, look, I'm coming. You got an extra room? Good, cool, I'm coming. So she moved in with my aunt. And at this time, we all lived in the same apartment complex. Me and my mom and my 2 aunts, they live right up the hill. I can walk out the door and I can see them. At this point, my aunt really is pushing hard on wanting to be able to find a man that was going to support her and her 2 kids, right? She was pushing that narrative that much harder because she was working. It was a struggle. It was hard being a single mother supporting 2 girls of all. And she's also climbing up in age a bit. So this is getting a lot harder for her. It's not old, but she wasn't taking care of herself well enough to slow down time. Mind you, both my mom and my aunt were in their early 50s when they passed away. But the way they carried themselves, the way they presented themselves, the way they moved on this planet, you would have thought they were in their 70s or 80s. because they struggled to get around, both of them. More my mom than my aunt, right? They both had issues, health issues, this, that, and the fourth. My aunt had back issues, all this type of stuff. But they both struggled. Now, putting a little bit more focus on my aunt. It got to the point where, all right, now it's becoming really, really difficult for her to sustain a job with, her health issues. So luckily, my other aunt was able to sustain them. She was working really hard. She was getting paid decent money on her job. She was able to keep a roof over their head. My other aunt didn't have much money at all. She just had to basically go off of what this other woman said she could and couldn't do. But by this time, the two girls in the house had gotten older. We're talking in their late teens, early 20s. So now they're ready to, how girls are. They're ready to dip up out the house as quick as they possibly can. So they did. They were young, teenagers, and they were up out the house. They were either with their friends all the time or with their boyfriends, but they were almost never at home. I mean, these girls were, they were, rip your hair out your head. Oh man, they were so much that my mom was getting ready to write a book about their lives. It was okay. But anyway, so one of the girls left a child behind. The youngest girl got pregnant early. She went to high school pregnant, right? 14. She left behind a boy, right? And this boy, my aunts fell in love with this boy. They treated this boy like a king. They treated him way better than they treated the two girls, the two sisters. They treated them way, way better. All right, mind you, these two girls were adopted. So if you go back to the father leaving, maybe he had a little bit more of incentive to want to maybe start a family elsewhere and not feel too bad about it, because the two girls back home were not his at all, you know what I'm saying? But that's a story for another time. That goes more into ethics and morals and all that type of stuff. Like I said, that's a story for another time if we get into it. Now, like I said, the youngest girl left behind a boy for her adopted mom, my aunt. Again, they loved this boy to death, did everything for him, spoiled him rotten. My aunt started to change her mind about the narrative that her and my mom had put together, which was, I want a man to support me. I want a man to take care of me. Now, it's fascinating that at this point in my aunt's life, she would change her mind, especially considering the fact that she herself really couldn't work. She really couldn't work. She wasn't earning any money. She didn't have any money whatsoever. But she was no longer pushing that narrative that, man, I really wish I just had a successful man that could just take care of me. So what she started to say was, you know what, girl? Look, hey, look, little sister. Hell, at this point, I just want a man. Look, he don't gotta be rich. He don't gotta be successful. Hell, he don't gotta have no mansion, none of that stuff like I was saying before. Hell, as long as he got a post, as long as there's a heart beating in his chest, and he gonna treat me right, he gonna do right by me. Hell, he could be living at home with his mama. I would like for him to have a car and a job, but shit, as long as he do right by me, I just want some male attention at this point. That was a story that my aunt started to say. My mom was still on her high horse. Girl, look. If he ain't got no money, he can't do nothing for me. Mind you, part of the reason why, and we're going back to my mom at this point, part of the reason why my mom spoke that way and was so keen on keeping it that way was because she was still able to get money out of men. My mom was one of the ultimate gold diggers, which is another reason why I said I was so messed up coming up, because I'm over here thinking like, man, I thought my mom was so great, such a wonderful person. But I also knew my mom to be a gold digger. So I'm over here thinking, I'm like, yo, if my mom's a gold digger, then every other girl is a gold digger as well. I didn't have a male role model or a father figure to tell me otherwise. All I had was the women in my life, and it was all women, the women in my life to tell me this stuff. Hell, even my little cousins, I would see and hear of things about how they were getting money. One I don't really want to talk about, But the other one, I remember there was a time where she had a boy just simping over her. It was one of her guy friends who was hanging around her all the time. He was simping hard. And he was doing everything, buying everything for her. She was using her nephew, which was her sister's son. She was using him like, hey, I want to go take him to Six Flags. The boy was like, all right, cool. I got you. I'm going to take you. I'm going to pay for everything. Oh, I want to go to the zoo. All right, cool. I'm going to take you. I'm going to pay for everything. Yeah, bring your nephew. I got you. We're going to go. Boy was simping hard. Just because this girl wanted to do things. She wanted to go out and do fun things. But she didn't want to be alone with this boy. So she would use her little nephew to kind of put a little distance in between her and this boy. This is stuff that I used to see growing up that just kind of had my mind boggled. I'm like, what in the world? These women, they're so, they're complicated. They're difficult. How am I supposed to maneuver as a man to acquire women when I can't even understand them? Like, this stuff makes no sense to me, right? Man, but I was, as you can tell, I was a very, very frustrated young man. Very, very frustrated. Very frustrated with trying to figure out how to maneuver through life, how to acquire females when all I had to go off of was the females that were around me. I'm gonna tell another story of how I came out of that. But yeah, that's a story of becoming at a later time. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to the channel to hear that. So back to my mom. Hold on, my chair kind of dipped down a little bit. There we go. So back to my mom. She was a gold digger, right? She was capable of getting so much money out of so many men over the years. And she had done that my entire life. I can show you guys pictures of when I was a kid and I had like 25, 30 remote control cars all around the Christmas tree, all for me. Because my mom knew how much I love remote control cars, and she had many men wrapped around her finger that would buy them for me. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can go find them pictures right quick. I'll be right back. All right, you guys, I found them. I don't know how well you guys are gonna be able to see them on camera. I'm not gonna screenshot them or nothing and put them up on the screen. I'm just gonna show y'all based off of these pictures here. But y'all, look, the Christmas tree is over here. These gifts, I know I look hella grown in this picture. I probably was like, I don't even know, maybe 14 years old in this picture. The Christmas tree is over here. The gifts are so huge, and every last one of them is for me, that they wouldn't even fit underneath the Christmas tree. I got a little Sega Dreamcast thing, a little handheld one. See, look, the tree over here, the gifts are stacked up on the sofa. Some of them were by the tree, but no, they wouldn't even go underneath the tree. You just see me unpackaging these gifts. And there's other pictures. I can't find the other pictures really showing just how insane this collection of remote control cars was, but you can see it somewhat in this picture. It's just stacks and stacks and stacks of remote control cars, and I counted, it was about 20 of them. And in the year previous to that, I had received like 25, and I can't find that picture. But my mother didn't come out of pocket on a single one of those gifts, a single one of them. Even up to the time where my mom passed away, she had this one guy, I won't say his name. She had this one guy who she had been talking to for maybe 2 or 3 years. And in that course of 2 or 3 years, she was able to get over $100,000 out of this man. $100,000 out of this man. Mind you now, that money was a blessing. It was a blessing because we were struggling. My mother and I were struggling. She couldn't work. She was so sick. I mean, I was struggling to keep a job because I needed to take care of her because of how sick she was. And that money was truly, truly a blessing. But it didn't change the fact that my mother was using and manipulating this man in order to receive that money, you know? And it made me feel so low all the time for the entire time that she was dealing with this guy whom I never saw in person. And the reason I felt so low is because here was this man that was providing for my family, my mother and I. And I'm a grown man and I couldn't do it. So it was a blow. It was a blow to my ego. It was a blow to my spirit. I asked her where she met him. I know she lied to me. She lied to me. She said, "Oh, I met him at an Aldi store. Yeah, I was doing something and he helped me, blah, 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 blah." I know that was a lie. She met him on one of those, if y'all ever seen back in the day, they used to have those telephone hotlines where you can call up the girls and stuff. That's how she met him. My mom was one of those hotline women. How did I know? Because every time one of those commercials came on and her and I was in the living room watching TV together, she would tell me to never call those numbers. Why? Because she didn't want me to call, pick up, and it'd be her. Right? I know that's how she met him. She was able to get over $100,000 out of a man that she couldn't even see, which is part of the reason why she always said, "Hell, if he can't give me money, he ain't no good to me." You think she was gonna be with a dude that couldn't get her money when she could get with guys that could? And then you gotta also think my mother was an attractive woman, even though she was a very big woman. Obviously, she grew over time. Even then, my mother was a very attractive woman. Remember when I was young, there were high A-list celebrities that used to try to get at my mother. I am not gonna name drop. I thought about it, but I'm not gonna do it. There were A-list celebrities. Talking comedians, actors, athletes, rappers, A-list celebrities that were trying to get at my mom. So, like most of these women, especially attractive women, they will think, well, hell, if I got this type of man that is eyeing me, shit, what I look like going out with this regular dude that's working this regular job? Like, what? Huh? That's how a lot of these women think they're entitled. They think they're deserving just because of their looks. They think they're deserving of a certain type of man. I'm gonna tell you right now, this is the way it works. No one, and I mean no one, is deserving of anything or anyone they didn't put in the work for. Even if you are a quote unquote high value man, you're not entitled to any type of woman unless you put in the work to show her your worth. Ladies, if you don't put in the work to show a man your worth, what you deserve? Nothing. You don't deserve anything. Nobody deserves anything they didn't work for. That was a little rant. I apologize. No, I don't. Take that back. So, obviously my mom thought she was something special, right? Now, let's tie together two things with both my mom and my aunt. Both of them had a guy in their life that was able to keep them happy or somewhat fulfilled to some degree. It wasn't a romantic love. It was just male energy. For my aunt, that was my little nephew. For my mom, it was me. It got to a point where my aunt, where her adopted daughter, took her son back. For whatever reason, I don't remember what it was. It might have had something to do with Medicare or food stamps or something like that, but she took her son back, right? Obviously that left a little hole, a little void in my aunt's life, and both of the aunts that lived together. But as for me, I was still with my mom for 28 years. I lived with her. So I got to a point where I said, you know what? Enough's enough. I don't feel like a man. I definitely don't feel like the man I'm supposed to be. Time for me to go. I started my journey of self-development during that time too. This was back in 2015. There's so much more to that story. It goes so in depth, and I will tell you guys that story at another time. I think I'll tell that story when I get closer to 1 million subs, but some of y'all have already heard it. So at 28, went to my mom, told her, "Mom, love you, but I gotta go. I can't do this anymore." Obviously, we sat there, had a long conversation. It was very, very difficult for me to make that decision, but I did. I was like, yo, I'm about to go live in this little uncomfortable ass two-door car of mine, but it don't even matter because I gotta go. Simple as that. And I'm leaving tomorrow. That night, my mother had a stroke, and that stroke took her life. A year later, my aunt had a stroke. When I say a year later, I mean a year almost to the date. There's 365 days in the year. 364 days later, after my mother's stroke, my aunt had a stroke. I think the dates were December the 16th, 2015 for my mom, and December the 15th, 2016 from my aunt. I don't know why it's so hard for me to say that, but basically exactly a year apart from each other. They both passed away. Single, unmarried, and alone. So my aunt had got to a point, right after her grandson leaves the house, my aunt really started to, focus more on dating. You know what I'm saying? She was like, hey, you know what? Forget this mess. I'm about to get on these little dating apps y'all got now. Because my aunt learned how to use the technology, the computers, the cell phones. My mom never did. So, and my aunt was older. So she got on this stuff. She got on the Facebook. She would find guys. She would talk to them. They would flirt. They would meet up, hang out, go on dates and all this type of stuff. And she seemed happy. She seemed happier than I have seen her in years. She was doing a lot better. She was doing a whole lot better. These guys were nothing special. There were no rich, successful millionaire dudes, no six-figure earners. They were just your average guy. Now, I find this ironic, right? I find this ironic because this is the way it goes. This is how it goes, right? So you got your women over here, right? Your modern women. For 20, 30 years, they're waiting around for a certain type of guy to attract, a certain type of guy to acquire. And then you have your average Joes. You got your middle class, hard working guys that are over here just working and wishing that they had a woman in their life that they can do right by and that will do right by them. Someone that they can start a family with, put a ring on the finger, and live happily ever after, right? You got both of these sides. Both of these things are happening, right? It took the woman to go through all that BS of wanting a certain type of man for 20, 30 years, only to end up with the average Joe Smo at 50 something years old, because they realized, well, damn, that was so unrealistic. That was so unrealistic for me to want this type of guy. And now what? Now what am I left with? The same type of dudes that you could have been had before. Oops. What blinds them is when they get a certain type of man and think that just because they couldn't keep him, that they can get another one of those type of guys again. I have female friends right now that's living in that illusion. I hope you're watching. I'm talking to you. Yeah, you know who you are. Okay, you mad. I know you mad. I know you mad. I know you want it your way. I know it sounds right. It sounds like it makes sense to you though. But that's the issue. It sounds like it makes sense to you. But you know what I'm saying is true. Just because you've had that type of man before, just like my mom, just like you've had that type of man before, don't mean that you deserve to have that type of man again or forever. If he didn't put a ring on your finger, what are you offering him? How are you showing your worth? But yeah. Yeah, I know this story was a bit all over the place, but it was on my mind and I wanted to tell it. I wanted to share it with you guys. But so leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. This was not the video that I was planning on giving you guys today. I got so many other ideas, so many other story times. I want to tell you about my rich, famous, successful friends too. It's so much that I got to share with you guys. But yeah, y'all know what time it is. If you like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more. As always, you can follow your boy on the gram and Twitter at Art of Kicks. And I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one. See ya.